All right, ZBA, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are opened. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for July 22nd, 2025. We have one canceled public hearing this evening, and that is Nanette Johns at 74 Surfside Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-51-4-12. That hearing has been canceled. So we'll go into our scheduled public hearings. Our first applicant is Lands End Marina at 386 Westlake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-12-1-1, 2, and 14, and 15. The size and location is 2.49 acres at 386 Westlake Drive in Montauk. The description: it's to construct a floating dock extension to accommodate an additional 26 vessels, a 960 square foot two-story bathhouse with attached decking, dumpster enclosure, concrete pad with walk-in freezer, additional parking, replace existing fencing, and install a new sanitary system on a parcel of land containing tidal wetlands and surface waters. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and variances from 255-375B Harbor Protection Overlay District and any other relief necessary. The 37-foot variance is required to install the new sanitary system 163 feet from wetlands where 200-foot setback is required. The zoning district is RS Resort, and it's in the XAE elevation 5 and 7 and VE elevation 8 flood zones, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
Yes, I reviewed the affidavits of service and posting, and everything appears to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this hearing.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you'll see, this property is posted 3 times on Westlake Drive. This one is directly in front of the existing residence. Next. I've made my way south, and this is on the second parcel that's associated with this. Behind this sign down in this area, we'll discuss it, is where the new septic will go. Next. I've walked down to the other end of their property. They posted this. You see the launching ramp beyond. This is the Town of East Hampton Westlake launching ramp that borders the property and discussed the parcel discussion tonight directly. Next. That's just a clearer shot. Everybody who does or doesn't know it, that's the East Hampton Town launching ramp. Next. Now I'm looking west on Westlake Drive. Give you an idea of the character of the neighborhood. Next. I'm looking east. I'm looking back up towards Montauk Highway. Next. That's the house that you saw behind the sign. That's the existing residence. That's the stay. Next. Now I'm walking down that drive. The residence is to my right. I'm going to go straight into the property. Next. This is important for us later on. Keep in mind this in another photo. That's the rear of the house. You see a little patio that's got the umbrella over it, and beyond that is a seating area with a little fire pit. That area is about where this new building is going to be constructed, so it's not to be confused with being any further down on the property. It's only going to be about 12 foot off of that patio. We'll get a better description later on from their representative. Next. I'm looking back as it comes. There's a shed there. There's some trees along the driveway. Gives an idea what the property is now, and some of that will be obviously have to be moved for the new layout. Next. Now I'm taking a look down. There's an unimproved parking area as described that's used for storage in some areas now. There's some additional material there, storage bins and some fishing gear, but that'll all be moved with the new layout. Next. All the way down alongside the dock, just about in this umbrella area, is where we're going to see that on the survey, there's a planned cooler, freezer in there, and I think a cooler at the same spot. But they're going to go down a little concrete slab. This calls for a variance right down here alongside the dock. Next. I'm just trying to show you the existing dock here. You'll see the slips, and I know it was noted that there were 24 slips, I believe, 24, and they're going to ask for 25 to be added. Here we are looking at the marina. Next. Again, another shot bound across the boats. Next. There's the walkway. We're going to go out on the dock, but one of the things to notice, I think there's another shot of it, but off in the distance, there are two other marinas, Cove Marina and Westlake Marina. So beyond where this construction is a channel that serves those two that are all the way at the far end of Coonsfoot Cove. Next. Again, I'm just looking now the other direction. I'm looking as you leave Coonsfoot Cove, looking out past Star Island on the right. Next. Looking across the way, that's fine. Next. Just wanted to show you what's going on here. And again, that's fine. This is again looking back up towards out of the harbor area. Next. So now we're going to walk down here to the plank to the down the walkway to the end, the dockway to the end. Next. I take a look over from one side, and you can see that there are wetlands. These are the wetlands that are going to be considered. These are the ones that are slightly to the south, and they're going to be, they come into play, and what requires the variances of this wetland here, along with obviously the shorefront. Next. As I was coming in, I took this while looking back out. There's some storage area here. We'd like the representative to tell us exactly how this is going to go in the future. But now they put trailers. There is a plan to use this, I think, for future trailers as well, or some other storage. Next. I just wanted to show you back in through here. So there's some equipment there. You'll see a crane, and all that stuff will be moved because the plan, the parking plan, which is well described in the documentation we have, will fill that area. Next. I think that's the last one. This is right to the left here. There's a fence. That fence separates the town property from this property, and there'll be some nodes in. Parking there in the completed layout if the project moves forward. Next, I think that's it. Is that it, Brian? Oh, just one more. I just was down there looking back. I'm looking back out. So you get a sense that it's a large, previously used, but unimproved to this point in terms of parking layout. And this is the area of the main concern and the main amount of work. I think that's it.
Thank you, Ed. Rick?
Yeah.
How are you, Rick?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Richard Whalen from Landmarks and Whalen Fowler PLLC here for the applicants. The applicant is Lands End Marina, Inc., but the owners are actually Tanya Miller, who's here tonight, and her brother, Chris Miller, who is not here, who's had to work. He might be watching on LTV, and if so, if he wants to comment, he can do that later. I'm also accompanied by Shannon McCaffrey from Dewey's Planning, and I'm going to leave some of the details about the application to her. And then Matt Sherman is the engineer on the project, so he's available if there are any questions that you have concerning the engineering. So the property consists of about 1.5 acres of upland and another acre or so of underwater land. The number of slips, we clarified this in the letter, and remember Johan made reference to this. There are 24 slips right now, and we're proposing 25. Those numbers were developed or agreed upon or resolved when Eric Shantz was handling the project for the planning department, which may have been several years ago because the project actually dates back to 2008. And believe it or not, except for about a 4-year period from late 2016 to late 2020, it was pretty much active every year. There was about a 4-year hiatus. And you asked me, how could it last long? And I can't really remember. There's been a lot of effort involved in the septic system, the design, placement of the septic, and so forth. And, Matt has finally resolved that. The septic now is proposed 163 from wetlands, which is physically as far landward as you can put it on the property, and it does meet the 4-foot separation, vertical separation requirement. So we need a natural resources special permit for the dock extension and some of the work on the upland, but the only variance needed is a 37-foot wetland setback variance for the new IA septic system. I dealt with the number of slips, so we would have a total of 49 if the project is approved. The proposed dock will not interfere with the navigation channel. That's been verified by more than one harbor master. It goes back to when who was Ed Michaels was the harbor master, and then I forget who the most recent letter is, but the harbor masters have agreed at least a couple times that this is not going to interfere with the navigation channel or the right of way in Coonsfoot Cove. The application, in addition to the dock extension, there are some ancillary facilities near the bulkhead, an ice station, freezer, and a dumpster, all for the convenience of people using the boats. And of course, the restroom building. Now, restroom facilities are required in a special permit for a recreational marina. Problem, of course, that the Land's End Marina predates all of the rules. So it's basically I say a no-frills marina, but it means you lack any restroom facilities. There is no office on the property, so there's no direct supervision of whatever goes on there. So the so-called restroom building will have restrooms on the first floor, and on the second floor will have an office. So one can actually watch and see what goes on the property. There can be a presence on the property, which is completely lacking right now. Also, of course, the parking lot will be rationalized. It will be improved. Drainage will be installed. It will look better and it will act better in terms of how it handles stormwater runoff. I think those are the main points here. I should make a couple of other things and then I'll turn things over to Shannon. Roughly the southern half of the property is proposed to be put into a scenic easement. There are wetlands, tidal wetlands that intrude into the property. There's also a wooded area. The nearest, in terms of what's around the property, to the north, as you saw from Member Johan's photos, is the town parking area and boat launching ramp, parking area associated with the boat launching ramp on Coonsfoot Cove. Across Westlake Drive are two marinas, and to the south, but not particularly close, is a residential condominium. And there's about 100-foot wooded buffer on the applicant's property between what we're proposing and those condominiums. I'll just hit really quickly I want to hit briefly on the variance standards. Remember, the only variance sought is that for the IA system. No variance is needed for the other structures. Will the grant of the variance cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, or will it cause a detriment to nearby properties? No, the marina has been there, as I said, for a very long time. It predates all modern regulations. This is basically an improvement. It will improve the parking area. It will install restroom facilities. There'll now be an on-site office. And of course, there'll be an on-site sanitary. There'll be an improved sanitary. I should say there is a sanitary system. I think it's only septic. As far as I know, it's only cesspools for the existing residents. So that, as well as the restroom building, will be connected to the IA system. Can the benefits be achieved by some other method other than variance? No. If you're going to do the project, there's no place on the property to put a septic system that meets the 200-foot wetland setback. It's physically impossible. We are 163 feet, and that means in terms of the substantiality of the variance, we're only seeking a variance of roughly 18.5% of the required setback, which is 200 feet. In terms of will the variance have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental characteristics in the neighborhood? Of course, no. We're upgrading the sanitary to an IA system and putting it as far back from the wetlands and meeting the 4-foot vertical separation to groundwater. And finally, what reasons led the applicant to request the variance other than comply with the town code? Again, if we're to do what we're proposing to do, you can't put in a septic system and meet the 200-foot setback because there's no place in the property to do that. So we will be 163 feet from the wetlands, and it will be an IA system. And I think the other elements of the project, such as the improvements to the parking, all of it goes towards the betterment of the site in environmental terms. So I'd like Shannon perhaps to address some of the other details of the project that I didn't discuss.
How are you, Shannon?
Good evening. Shannon McCaffrey, Dewey's Planning.
Shannon, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
The applicant is seeking an 8-foot by 120-foot T-shaped dock extension that will allow for 25 more slips. The dock will be constructed of non-treated wood as required by town code. The Millers are seeking these extra slips in order to maintain a sustainable marina. It also should be noted that no dredging is needed for the additional slips. And the Millers have been in business for numerous years and know exactly what type of boats that they are able to have at their marina, and boats that are too large, they wouldn't accept. The applicant is also seeking approval to construct a 2-story bathhouse with a footprint of 480 square feet with a total gross floor area of 960 square feet and 492 square feet of decking, as well as a walk-in freezer and dumpster enclosure to serve the marina. Currently, this is a marina with no amenities. The proposal will provide restrooms and changing areas, a proper area to dispose of waste, and a freezer to provide storage of bait and ice for the marina patrons. The site will also provide proper parking and be upgraded to meet ADA compliance. There will be 4 handicap spaces, an ADA walkway from the parking area to the bathhouse and dock. The ramp to the dock will be ADA compliant, and 2 slips have been designated as accessible slips. The site will also be upgraded with an IA septic system that has been designed to maximize the distance to wetlands and achieve the 4-foot separation to groundwater while being gravity fed. No pumps will be needed for the septic. And the existing grade in this area will be maintained and restored with grasses after installation. The upgrade to a nitrogen reducing septic system, establishment of a 29,516 square foot scenic easement, proper parking, ADA compliance, and designated dumpster area are all positives for the neighborhood environment. The site has been designed to have proper drainage, which will also benefit the waterways. Currently, there is no drainage on site, and the additional boat slips will allow for a local marina to continue operating. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Now, because this is an HPOD, the paving materials in the parking area will be quartz?
Quartz, except the handicap spaces will have to be concrete to be able to be ADA compliant. You can't have quartz for those too.
Thank you, Shannon.
And then there's also 21 grass parking spaces.
Right, okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps we'll hear from Brian.
No, I'll have the Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Brian Frank from the Planning Department.
Brian, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm going to be relatively brief, but I do think it's important to kind of provide a little bit of background. It's been a while since the zoning board has reviewed dock construction in one of our commercial areas, and there are some significant distinctions there. This is the Land's End Marina is in Coonsfoot Cove. Coonsfoot Cove is in the northwest corner of Lake Montauk. It has the highest concentration of docks in the town and boat slips. I included a map of the cove with the zoning overlaid as part of the existing conditions package. And you can see that most of the cove and the properties bordering it are zoned either waterfront or resort zoning districts. There are a few properties that are residentially zoned, but by and large, this is an area of high commercial intensity. Waterfront marinas, there are a lot of restaurants in Coonsfoot Cove. There are some hotels and resort units, and that's reflective of the zoning district. Much of the shoreline is bulkheaded. There's extensive bulkheading throughout Coonsfoot Cove. The salt marsh that is at least partially on the applicant's property in the southern half of the property is one of the only intact salt marshes left in Coonsfoot Cove. The other one is on the north side of that West Lake launch ramp where the town owns that property for open space purposes. So this is an area of somewhat intense maritime commercial uses, and I think that is reflected in the planning department's assessment and would respectfully, should be considered in the zoning board's application of the natural resource special permit standards. Dredging is not prohibited in Coonsfoot Cove. It's not common because it doesn't shoal up like the north end of East Lake Drive does. It is kind of placid because of the shape of the cove. It is kind of cut off from the main circulatory body of Westlake, so we don't see dredging there frequently, but it does incur on a maintenance basis. There are a few examples of that in history. The whole cove is closed to shellfishing year-round. That's an administrative closing that the state requires anytime you have that high a concentration of boat slips, docks, and everything. So Coonsfoot Cove is distinct in the planning department's opinion. I think it's reflected in the zoning from the rest of Coonsfoot Cove. There is, I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I should blow that. I don't know how well you can see that from where you're sitting, or if it's okay to, if you want me to enlarge it, I will. If not, I'll just tell you what's on the site plan. If you look closely on the waterfront line, you can see this is the existing underwater property line. There is an existing lease area here. Obviously, the extent of lease area would have to be enlarged for the marina expansion. That would be in the purview of the town board. This application, as Rick said, has been under review for a while. It's been reviewed several times recently by the planning board. The planning board is the lead agency for this application, and just so that there's no question about it, the trustees do not have jurisdiction in this area of town. This is not something that requires a trustee permit. As Shannon noted, the components of the docks have been proposed to not contain any chemically treated lumber, which is a code requirement. And the sanitary system is pretty much in the most conforming location possible. You could see the most landward area of the wetland is kind of this flag point here. So if you move the sanitary to the northern portion of the property, I think you'd get about the same setback, give or take 1 or 2 feet. So the planning department is satisfied that this is the minimum variance, or the maximum setback rather, for any new sanitary design. The sanitary design does include tying in the existing residence in addition to the new bathroom and office. This will be going back to the planning board for additional review. We'll probably have the town's engineer review the drainage before the next site plan review. And this application obviously does require an application to the DEC. It would be nice to know if that application is pending. The notations on the most recent engineering plans kind of suggest that they are. But it's a good idea to do applications to involved agencies concurrently. So if one requires changes, those changes can be incorporated into whoever's also reviewing it at the same time. I think those are most of the points, if not all of the points, that I wanted to make sure the board was aware of. Everything else that I didn't cover is in the planning department's assessment. And I'll just make myself available for any questions if the board has any.
Just in terms of curiosity, we're basically doubling the size of slips here. What is the potential of that type of growth in this area with other businesses and stuff like that? And what would be if there is a tipping point? Is there a tipping point on that environmentally from an NRSP standpoint?
From an NRSP standpoint, it's hard to say. Again, this is not a pristine area. This is a degraded area. There are no SAV beds here. The water circulation is poor. There is a lot of pre-existing development in this area. So properties like this, as they come in for upgrades and modernization, that's when you're looking at better sanitary design, better runoff control from stuff that was designed in maybe the 70s, frequently older than that. I think that would be a difficult question to answer without really assessing everything out here. It's correct that the dock has been looked at by the most recent 2 harbor masters, Ed Michaels and most recently Tim Treadwell. And there is, in their opinion, it's not going to impact navigation. And there is no other objective assessment tool that I could tell you about what the impacts would cumulatively be. There was a recommendation there is a recommendation in the LWRP for kind of a conceptual wharf line that would kind of look at additional lease areas offshore of some of the underwater properties in Coonsfoot Cove, but that has never really been pursued deep enough to provide you an objective criteria of where that tipping point that you asked for would be.
I mean, I had,
No, well, I'm just going to ask about the easement. The easement fully covers from the planned septic area all the way down to and including the shoreline?
Yes, it covers, you can see the hatched area.
Yeah.
It's about 10 feet off of the leaching field and extends down to either mean high water or mean low water.
And then in terms of, I know there's no dredging now, but any future dredging would come back in front of us for an NRSP?
Yeah, any maintenance dredging would require a natural resources special permit.
And any additional dredging beyond maintenance would be, what kind of steps do they have to go through for that?
The same ones.
Same
You
one.
would look at the maximum depths that are proposed, the slopes that are proposed to get there,
Yeah.
how it's going to be dredged, where things are going to be dewatered, where the sediment is going to be disposed of. Since there's no record of dredging on this property, there would be a grain size analysis and a toxicology study to make sure that you're not oxygenating and digging up any sediments that have anything in it, heavy metals or organic compounds that nobody knows about.
And the parking layout includes on the drawing that I guess is done by the applicant's engineer. You said we haven't looked at it yet. Our engineer hasn't looked at it yet, right?
Correct.
Yeah, but that includes like 20 dry wells, I think, if you count them up. So
Yes,
that's
you could see them on the site plan.
right. So you can see that there, and then whatever slope there is in there, whatever drainage slope is included in that to make it work has been worked out by them, and it'll be reviewed by our own engineering.
It will be reviewed by the engineer. It is a very gently sloping property. You could see it on the topography, and you probably got that sense when you were at the property that it's flat to gently sloping towards the shoreline.
Right. Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
I have, so I had the same question that our chair had, so thank you for the answer on that, but, you know, I do have to read out loud from your TAM, the high concentration of shoreside development and limited tidal exchange results in generally poorer water quality than the main body of the harbor. So obviously we have a septic system coming in, which will take care of the on-site structures, but are there any other conditions or actions, you know, that can be, or other restrictions or something that would help the water quality related to increasing the capacity of the number of slips, the amount of activity?
I'm sorry. What related to that would increase the capacity?
Sorry, is there any other condition or some sort of requirement that would help mitigate some of this poor water quality that is noted in this area of the
I don't
lake?
think nothing that you can apply on a single lot basis. I think in general, it's always a great idea to take a look at what the best management practices are for marinas in general. And you kind of make that, that's more of a proactive than something that you incorporate in a permit condition, I think.
Okay.
But it's bigger than any one property here.
And then, I'm sorry.
That's it.
And then with respect to the safeguards and standards section for the NRSP, there is a section H, which applies specifically to standards for NRSP for docks. And I don't have as much, we just actually looked at this section for another application, a residential application, but are there any comments you have of this NRSP relative to this request for this dock relative to these standards?
No, those standards are specifically for residential.
They're just for
docks.
residential. Okay, thank you. I wanted to clarify.
And they're
There's nothing.
not a good fit for a marina. Those are intended to protect more natural areas, so there are limitations on the width, the length,
Right.
the depth you have to get to in a certain distance, and that those are appropriate to protect less intensely used waterfront areas.
Yeah,
But
that's why I wanted to ask, because I started reading these and I was like, they don't seem
Yeah,
as relevant. Yeah.
they don't apply. They don't apply. They're residential, and they would be a poor fit on a commercial property like
Thank you,
this.
Brian.
Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Is there anybody in the public would like to address this application? Matt, is there anybody online?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick, you want to close?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Richard Whalen again, just one comment. A question I thought you might ask, but sorry, she'll answer the question you didn't ask. But we will need a new lease, obviously, from the town board to extend this.
Yes.
From the very beginning of the project, intermittently, we've been in contact with the town, usually through whoever the town attorney was at the time. And what we've been told consistently, most recently, I probably, a couple of years ago from John Jolnicki, is that the town board isn't going to make a decision prematurely. They want to see this go through the process. So we get site plan approval and a permit from the zoning board, then obviously we expect and hope the town board will grant this a lease, but we have no assurances in that regard. So that's where the town board wants to act last.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we close?
Yep. We're not leaving it open for any reason.
No.
Then in the application of Lands End Marina, 386 West Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-12-1-1, 2, 14, and 15, I'd like to close the public hearing and the public record at this time.
Second.
Concur.
Concur, thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Ryan Jansen at 164 Westlake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-19-5-8 and 21. Size and location is 84,952 square feet at 164 Westlake Drive, Montauk Beach. Development Core number 1024, Block 155A, Lot 17 in Montauk. The description is to demolish the existing approximately 1,605 square feet, one-story residence and associated structures, and to construct a new approximately 2,736 square foot, two-story residence with first and second story decking, covered decking, outdoor shower, planters, driveway, new sanitary system, and associated structures. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the town code, and 4 variances are required for this application. Variances of 22.9 feet, 23.2 feet, and 42.2 feet are required from 255-430 of the town code to construct decking 77.1 feet, the residence 76.8 feet, and the patio 57.8 feet from tidal wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required. 1 variance of 60 feet is required from 255-375 to construct a new sanitary system 140 feet from tidal wetlands of Lake Montauk where 200-foot setback is required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10 is secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
Yes, I reviewed the affidavits of service and posting. Everything seems to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this matter.
Who did the report here? Okay, Terry?
Tyler?
Yes, the official notice of posting was properly posted. Next, this is a shot just looking up toward the north on Westlake Drive. Probably everybody's pretty familiar with that. Next, this is an area where the proposed sanitary system is proposed to go. Right near the beginning of the driveway. Next, okay, this is a shot from the street side, looking pretty much from the property line toward the direction of the house, again, where there's a proposed driveway to go through, and the current structure is going to be moved forward toward the street. Next. It's another shot of some of the vegetation in that area, that same area. Next. This is another view from the driveway side of the existing house. Next. And this is in the back of the house, looking from south to north, where there will be some redevelopment going on back there also. Next. This is a property, it's a very long property, so I am going to take a walk down there. See a lot of vegetation in the grass, and I believe they're proposing to put a buffer in there to the wetlands. Next. This is just a natural path that goes down to the water from here. Next shot. Is the water line itself, also undisturbed. Next. This is a shot now back at the house, looking in the opposite direction from where the existing structure is, looking in the direction of the driveway proposal and some of the structure that'll be moving toward the street, and I think is it. No, okay. It's a shot looking at the current driveway layout from south to north as it exists today.
That's it. Thank you. Who's the agent? Andy, is this you?
Yep.
How are you, Andy?
Pretty good. Good evening, Chairman Deline, members of the board. Richard A. Hammer. I'm here representing Ryan Jensen at 164 Westlake Drive. I had previously worked with the prior owner, a guy named Dean Mogul, who received permits from the board in 2018 for a larger project on this property, very similar to the proposed house. Dean was also a friend of mine. I actually painted that house with him on the weekend for free. But kind of an eclectic guy. It was designed to, the original house was designed to accommodate Dean, whose brother Mark lives in Sweden. He was coming back to spend summers with him. It was kind of an eclectic design. If you looked at the architecturals, you can see why somebody would say, I don't really want to do that. It had like bedrooms with separate living space so he could come out and enjoy his privacy while his brother was visiting him. But everything changed. His brother got another job and wasn't going to be spending any time here. Dean subsequently moved to Connecticut, I believe, and I still keep in touch with him. When Ryan purchased this, he pretty much abandoned the prior permits just based on the unusual design and wanted to submit a plan that made more sense to him. I wanted to be brief. There isn't a whole lot to talk about here, as the current plan basically honors all the optics of that was already approved here. It's a little bit smaller house by about 200 square feet, about the same decking, et cetera. The majority of the house will be compliant with the wetland setback of 100 feet. This is a very unusual lot, as the wetlands extend up the side yard lot line to Westlake Drive on the south side of the property, making compliance with wetland setbacks nearly impossible. We're also doing a pretty extensive revegetation with consistent with the prior approval, nearly 11,219 square feet of the property. As a matter of fact, all that area shaded green. This property was pre-existing non-conforming. It was basically lawn. There's very little outdoor space for the owner, so he did want to retain the small areas to the east, essentially where the house is being demolished. If you look through, you can kind of see the foundation of the prior house in there to provide him with a little outdoor living space. That was all previously structural and fairly extensive on the extensive grandfathered lawn. Clearing limits will be nearly compliant to HPOD compliance on a property that legally had, I think it was like 22,500 square feet of permitted clearing. We're retreating from the wetlands, removing the old sanitary system, which was in fact upgraded to a sanitary system, but it was not an IA system. I think when we got the initial permits, before IA systems were required by the town code, revegetating the property and creating a really nice wetland buffer along the lake on a property that is improved with a reasonably sized but very old house on the lake. The new owner took the original approvals from the board, improved on some aspects aspects in the plan. This was also approved by the DEC. The prior plan in 2018, I believe this is pending approval right now. I think it will represent a net environmental benefit to this property and to the lake when it's complete. The sanitary system is literally as far as from the wetlands as you can. I believe it's more or less as compliant as we can make it on this property. And I did want to draw your attention to some of the written submissions that Joel made prior. Basically, it goes through a lot of the standards and some of the improvements, et cetera. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have other than that.
I have a question. Do you want to go? Sorry. Andy, can you talk about, I know, I mean, this does look like the thing that was similar to what was approved before, so I understand. But did you consider any other designs? Because you still have, if I did my math correctly, you know, that first story has more spread to it than if you did a traditional second story house or something like that. So were there any designs or any possibilities to even eliminate some of the variances that you and your client looked at and considered?
Well, I think if you look at the plan that was approved, and we're talking 2018, I believe that was still a very valid plan at the end of the day. The design constraints on the property that were incorporated into that approval, we tried to honor those as best we can. And I think we improved on them. It's a little bit smaller house. In terms of the wetland setbacks, those are the hardest ones. It's very difficult to alleviate those on this property because of the way they run up the side yard setback. That being said, we're getting much more compliant with them than we would have than the existing residents. And, you know, there is a patio. I also did want to state that patio has been removed. That was not proposed, so that no longer is on the application as well.
And then just one other quick question. It might be in the document somewhere and I might have missed it because you have a full basement and I'm not remembering what the ceiling height is in the basement, but what is the separation to groundwater for the basement?
It's required to be at least 2 feet. I remember the full basement was also incorporated in our prior approval. The zoning board has always enforced the 2-foot depth to groundwater separation irrespective of what the town code said. So that was part of the original approval and it would be part of this approval too, the 2-foot separation minimum.
And we didn't change that to 4 feet required? No. That wasn't changed? Thought it was.
The foundation to groundwater? No, it's 4 feet. It's 2 feet. It's 4 feet for a sanitary system in HPOT.
Okay, I thought all right. Thank you, Andy.
Just a clarification note, Andy, on, I think the latest survey is at 7/1/24. Tyler? Okay, just a clarification on when he goes to the clearing, he's got allowed 10,000, existing 22,594, and then he says existing 11,375. I think it should say proposed.
Proposed, that's
Right,
correct.
so
Yes,
that's
that was an error. I think we pointed that out in a written submission.
Yeah, in this letter.
So just a point.
Happy hour at Wallbridge Survey, I think, when they were doing that. I was there. It was a lot of fun, but.
Did the house in the previous house for Dean, did that have a garage included in it? I don't think it did.
I don't believe it did, no.
Yeah.
I think the garage was, you know, based on the way he designed the house, no, it wasn't. That was, the area would have been in the front of the house.
So the driveway extends obviously partially up the side of the property there. So it's going to be a tight maneuver to get back out of that garage.
Well, there's also a lot of unpaved area of Westlake Road that in front of these properties, you know, all of these, it's not just this property. This is the edge of pavement here. That's the property line. So there is more room to maneuver around that area. Right now, you can, as you look at the driveway, it's probably, at least in my opinion, it was a little dangerous the way it kind of comes out and it's a single. So I think the idea was to make it a little bit of a safer access for him with the circular.
You're not going to be able to revegetate because anything in the front because there are some pretty mature trees there in the front. Is there?
I think those are landscape trees. You know, they're just very mature.
I know, there's one oak.
Then they're 30 or 40, but.
I just didn't know if you could add to your revegetation somewhere.
Well, this is driveway here.
Yeah.
Coming around here. I think those landscape trees might even be on the road right of way, to be honest. driving by it. I'd have to look at it very closely. But we focused all of our re-veg efforts along the wetland boundary on the front and south side of the property, which is where you get the most bang for your buck, so to speak, in terms of, revegetation efforts.
Okay, nothing's going to be put in that right away, right?
No,
Nothing proposed, it didn't look like it. Okay.
no, there isn't anything proposed in the right of way.
Any further
And-
questions?
Is this a buffer area or is this a scenic easement? Scenic easement. Is it a scenic easement?
Oh, yeah, is it a scenic, I forgot. Do we have a scenic easement on this? Are we getting one?
I believe we agreed to
I'm
one
not
in the
sure I
prior
saw it. I saw
application.
something about a buffer.
Yeah. It's not really on the
Well, re-veg
survey.
would be, but that's a pretty substantial buffer if that's me.
It'd be a nice scenic easement.
Yeah, I didn't see one on the survey. We can ask Tyler if it's, was it
Yeah,
a
maybe we can
condition?
have Tyler
No.
clarify that.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Right, I
I think
didn't
the
hear your
re-veg
answer.
is substantial.
I said, but we can certainly ask Tyler to clarify. I was under the impression that there was a scenic easement in the prior application and.
Yeah, it might have been, that's
Oh,
right.
right,
yeah,
of
yeah.
it, part of it, yeah. And you would honor it now then?
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions?
No.
No questions.
The only thing I would say is any scenic easement should allow at least access to the water. I think that, this was a great place for kayaking or whatever, and this is just expansive lawn now, but as long as we can have an unimproved natural pathway, I think that would be absolutely fine.
And we don't have a re-veg plan though yet from you, do we?
No, we haven't submitted a formal one, but we will as a condition of approval before, before issuance of a building permit. I'm pretty confident I know what it's going to say. It's going to be woody vegetation, just as per typical in this area.
All right, thank you. Tyler?
Tyler Borsak for the planning department.
Tyler, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So this property is located on the eastern side of Westlake Drive, fronting on Lake Montauk wetlands. The proposed project is an NRSP and 3 variances. One of the variances was removed for the patio after that discrepancy between the survey and the building plans was fixed. The project proposes to demolish the existing 1,605 square foot residence and construct an approximately 2,736 square foot 2-story residence with decking on both floors, accessory structures, and a new sanitary system. Now, the patio was removed, as I noted. The parcel is situated along the southwestern shoreline of Lake Montauk, which is a New York State significant fish and coastal wildlife habitat. And it's also a component of the Peconic Estuary Program's critical environmental area. The southwestern shoreline of Lake Montauk adjoins an extensive complex of freshwater wetlands that flow through a series of marshes, swamps, watercourses, ditches, and culverts prior to entering into the harbor. The current location of wetlands and the location of tidal marsh soils in the county soil survey suggests a strong possibility that the entire parcel was once marshland and that the only upland area may consist of fill, which was brought in onto the site to facilitate the construction of the original residence. The existing property is pre-existing non-conforming as the residence is located 35.9 feet from wetlands where 100 feet is required. And the area of clearing currently is 22,594 square feet, where 10,000 square feet would be permitted. The ZBA's most recent application was in 2018, as was sort of already discussed, and that approved a 2,939 square foot 2-story residence with 1,253 square feet of first and second story decking, a new driveway, and a sanitary system. The two projects are very similar to one another, both with similar size improvements and similar setbacks to one another. Comparing the two applications, the proposed coverage is 174 square feet greater than the one approved in 2018. Total coverage is up 1,387 square feet, and that's mainly attributed, I think, to the driveway being slightly larger. And final clearing limits are 918 square feet larger than in 2018, which also can be attributed to that driveway, since the area of revegetation is identical. It's essentially a swap. They just eliminated the area where the driveway is at that southwestern corner of the lot. So the two projects are very, very similar to one another. That 2018 approval had all the standard conditions that are already enumerated in our technical analysis memo. There was not a scenic easement in that one. Certainly one would be a good idea. I think you could probably just, do a vertical line roughly where that edge of clearing is, and that would probably be sufficient. Maybe cut it in as well along a corner or something like that. But it shouldn't be terribly difficult to create a sizable scenic easement. The revegetation in and of itself is a significant reduction in the nonconformity on the property. It's cleared right up to the edge of wetlands on that eastern side. So the revegetation that's included is significant on this application. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Do you have any questions?
Can you show us on the survey where you think the scenic easement?
Certainly, at least a vertical line here. I mean, maybe you want to cut it in along here a little bit. But even just a vertical line, I think would probably be a significant size scenic easement in and of itself.
Thank you, Taylor.
Any other questions?
No, thanks.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Is there anybody in the public would like to address this application? Is there anybody online?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, you good, or any closing remarks?
No, I did just want to say that, yes, we would agree to a scenic easement. I think that's a reasonable proposal, is to drop a vertical line and maybe hug a little bit of that side buffer area, as long as it doesn't interfere with any of the, proposed structures, maintains that 10-foot. I can't object to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay, for the application of Ryan Jansen at 164 Westlake Drive in Montauk, tax map 300-019-05-8 and 21, and make a motion to close the public hearing and the public record.
Second?
Concur.
Concur. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before you read the next notice in, I'm going to recuse myself and relinquish my perch
And we
to
have our
Mr.
alternate,
Thorson.
John Thorson, enter.
Dun, dun, dun.
Stage left. It is Cape.
Our Cape Crusader. Go ahead, John.
No worries. Thanks for doing that.
Okay, our next hearing is, applicant is Sands Capital Holdings LLC at 183 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk tax map number 300-176-8-23.3. The size and location is 57,325 square feet at 183 Marine Boulevard, Beach, Hampton, Section 2, lots 11 through 17, and including part of Lot 10, Lot 2 of CMP 5SJ Amagansett. The description is to raise and renovate the existing residence and existing cottage in order to meet FEMA first floor elevation standards, construct 519 square feet of additions to the main residence, construct new stairs, reconfigure the existing swimming pool, new driveway, gate, attached basement garage, and to temporarily clear approximately 3,100 square feet of beach vegetation on a parcel of land containing dunes, dune land and beach vegetation, and which is located within front yard lot line setbacks higher than the maximum allowable height outside the town's pyramid regulations and greater than the maximum allowable gross floor area. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town, and 8 variances are required for this application. Variances of 6 foot 11 feet, 12 foot 9 inches, 7 feet 11.25 inches, and 5 inches are required from 255-1172D of the Town Code to allow the residents to be 6 foot 11 inches, 12 foot 9 inches outside of the town's pyramid regulations along the eastern and northern lot lines, and for the cottage to be 7 feet 11.25 inches and 5 inches outside of the town's pyramid regulations along the western and northern lot lines, respectively. One variance of 10.125 feet is required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to allow the residents to have a maximum height of 35.125 feet above adjacent national grade, where 25 feet is the maximum allowable. One variance of 560 square feet from 255-1110 of the Town Code is required to allow the residents to have a maximum gross floor area of 5,082 square feet, where 4,522 square feet is the maximum allowable. Two variances of 4.6 feet and 0.4 feet are required from 255-1110 of the town code to construct the decking and swimming pool 15.4 feet and 19.6 feet from the front yard lot line where 20-foot setbacks are required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence, VE flood, velocity flood zone, secret class is type 2. Council, do we have proper affidavit of service and posting?
Yes, I reviewed the affidavits of service and posting, and everything appears to be in order, and the board has jurisdiction over this hearing.
Okay. Before we get into the thing, I just want to just clarify, council, we had a hearing on this. That hearing was closed. And we reopened the hearing. Remind me of that. It's essentially a continuation of the original hearing.
Yes, yeah,
So the record for the original hearing still holds?
yes, that's all part of this
Right.
incorporated in.
All right, and councils, I just request that tonight's hearing be limited to the continuation, if that's okay, because we have on record already. With that, we have a brief report.
The relief sought changed also.
What?
The relief sought.
And the relief sought changed a little bit. Okay, thank you. John?
Yep, thank you. Happy to have this opportunity to submit this report. This is the notice directly in front of the residence on Marine Boulevard. Next, please, Tyler. This is a panoramic shot. This was taken with my iPhone with panoramic mode, which is taken directly between the house at 183 Marine and the cottage next door. And it just gives you an idea of the overall elevation along 183, along Marine Boulevard. Next, please. This is a shot looking essentially southeast from Marine Boulevard, showing both the cottage and the main residence. Next, please. That's the cottage from the driveway leading to 183 Marine, so that's looking in roughly a southwesterly direction. Next, please. That is the garage at 183 Marine, so I'm now looking southeast. Next, please. This is behind 183 Marine, all the way up, well, actually halfway up the walkway that leads to the upper deck and to the walkway that goes to the ocean. And this is looking directly west. Next, please. This is standing at the dune crest on the walkway that leads from 183 to the ocean. And this is looking directly west along the dune line. Next, please. And this is sweeping a little bit eastward. Looking at 189 Marine, you can see on the left, the cottage, and 183 Marine. Next, please. I've swept a little bit further east, so you can see 183 Marine and the house to its east. Next, please. And there is the house directly to the east of 183 Marine. Next, please, Tyler. And this is, again, a panoramic shot taken from the top of the dune crest. My back is facing to the ocean, looking pretty much due north. That just gives you an idea of the overall elevation of the neighborhood. Next, please. That's it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
Good evening, Chairman Deline, members of the board again. I'm here tonight for the continuation. I think Roy hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. We did have a hearing. I don't want to reiterate or rehash most of the points, so I'm going to try and keep my remarks as brief as possible, just focusing on the changes that the board said in their deliberations. They wanted to rehear, basically. And I think this is a hearing, a continuation that was done by the board on their own motion, so it's not truly a continuation, it's a reopening of the hearing, but it's the same record. I would say a lot has happened in our nation and our region since our last hearing. Devastating floods occurred in Texas, New Jersey, some areas of Vermont that are difficult to fathom. There's been a lot of public discussion around FEMA regulations and its ability to direct and protect development in flood-prone areas. alternatives to render and create more safer communities. I sincerely hope, based on unprecedented examples, our community has the foresight to act proactively to address vulnerabilities. No one expects these types of impacts in flood zones, but clearly they happen, and without adequate protections in place, the results can be horrific. Tonight, we're talking about my post-hearing submissions, perhaps most noticeably, the flat roof alternative that we submitted for the board's consideration. I welcome the opportunity to discuss these with them. The flat roof is identical in all respects. It's the same house, same FEMA rules, same elevation heights, all that stuff applies. We just changed the roof form from its previous gabled roof to a flat roof design. Another update I wanted to provide the board, we expect our DEC permit will be issued by the end of the month. Britain had just received an email from the reviewer earlier this week. With me tonight, I have Erica Belsky. She was here at the first hearing as well. I have Lori from BMA Architects, and I believe Britain is watching and can call in if there's any questions. But is not here tonight with me physically, but she's here monitoring this. I did want to clarify a couple of the facts. We have never proposed, nor are we seeking an approval for a roof deck on either design. In fact, the plans don't even have a way to provide access to the roof at all. In fact, this comment appears in both letters submitted to the board today, which I read. It's basically not true. I also wanted to address the idea that this application is based on a desire to improve ocean vistas because of beach accretion. Again, demonstrably false. Just go up and visit the house, see for yourself. This is about safety, durability, and insurability, not vanity. And I'm sure Erica can answer those questions, but she did at the first hearing. For simplicity's sake, I would compare the flat roof option on this house to sort of having a fluffy cupcake in your hand. You simply flatten the cupcake with your hand so that the center depresses, and you get a resulting redistribution of the mass onto the flatter areas that you've created. The analogy doesn't account for frosting, but at least it gives you a good general idea of what the architects considered. Under the town code, there are different height limitations based on the roof form. A flat roof is allowed to be 25 feet in height. A gabled roof can be 30 feet in height. In actuality, it can be up to 35 feet in height, depending on lot size and a couple other things. But in general, there's a 5-foot difference between the allowable roof heights. During the first hearing, the topic of alternatives was raised. We wanted to demonstrate to the board that we had, in fact, considered these alternatives. The flat roof option is a more expensive option. It requires significantly more construction work. Basically, you have to reframe to accommodate the flat roof, and it requires additional labor and materials. However, it's an alternative that we would be willing to accept. We wanted to present it to the board, and I'll go into why it matters. The renderings show this option for both structures. We've agreed to consider this, but it should be applied equally to the guest as well as the main residence. Basically, it makes sense that these structures architecturally relate to one another, and the renderings demonstrate this better than any architectural drawing that you can look at. Overall, there are some benefits to this option. The overall height of the main residence is reduced by 2 foot 9 inches using a flat roof option. You can see the change in the drawings we submitted. It is lower throughout the majority of the structure, excepting the fascia along the face of the structure, where the roof height is extended to continue to cap the living space on the second floor. However, under the town code, a lower structure needs a greater height variance because it has a different height limitation. I wanted to explain that. The same scenario occurred to the guest cottage when we changed the roof form, which actually met height limitations under both scenarios, whether it's flat roof, it's a single story structure, but the structure is 5 feet 3 inches shorter in overall height with a flat roof. You can also see the pyramid lines change along the compressed roof line, increasing the pyramid noncompliance where the gable is clipped to transition to a flat roof. So if you have the normal gable was this way, now we're extending the flat roof. So that does create changes to some of the pyramid lines, most notably on the east and west. We have letter of support from those folks in there, but there were some changes along the roadside pyramid line as well. If you look at the one on the the cottage as well, there's a 5-inch pyramid variation that or the request, 5 inches typically under the town code, you get up to 6 inches as a builder's error. We just wanted to demonstrate that, yes, capping this with a flat roof does create some impact. It's de minimis, but we wanted to call it out and show you that's the same thing that's occurring on the other structure. It just makes a little bit of sense because of its proximity to the front yard lot line. You know, just this week, I was driving down Marine Boulevard, and I think your panoramic photo, although it's a little disorienting to look at, and you know, gives you a perspective, I was trying to envision, well, what will FEMA eventually require of this neighborhood? Most of the ocean side in this road is obscured by landscaping. Basically, I would ask you to drive down the road and envision this house, and perhaps all the other ones lifted to FEMA compliant elevations. I don't see how it could possibly change this area other than making it safer, more durable, and resilient for the next generations of owners. There's no open vistas of sprawling open space at all. There are improved lots that are landscaped and improved with houses. I don't think you can see over the top of existing houses or through them either. This is a safety and a concern for the community that I think the board, we're asking the board for the variances and to apply the balancing test and get to the benefit to the applicant versus detriment to the general health, welfare, safety. I don't want to rehash anything that I submitted. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, and I know there are some members of the public that want to speak as well.
Just a point to get straight. Are you abandoning their first design and presenting?
I'm not abandoning it at all. That was our preferred design. However, we submitted this as an alternative, and I think there are measurable improvements in overall height that perhaps we would accept either design option, and it's for the board to weigh the balance and the benefits and detriments in your eyes in terms of what you think is more importantly. The 2 foot 9 inches of overall height reduction and over 5 feet on the guest cottage.
That 2.9 feet, is that from existing or from the first proposal?
From the first proposal. And there is a drawing. I actually happen to have the full-size architecturals, but that is a very good drawing to give you. That's the gabled side. And then the next is the flat roof. Just to show the difference. And there was an architectural plan that had a purple line on it that showed the original proposed versus the proposed today. And I made sure that was submitted to the board because I thought it was illustrative of exactly what was going on here. So, this is submitted to the board, A211. This is on the cottage plan. The blue purplish line shows the original roof line versus what's proposed in the flat roof. And that carries over to the main house as well.
Questions, board members?
I don't suppose you know how the proposed height of the flat roof structure you have here relates to 189 immediately to the west. Meaning which height is, how does it relate in terms of overall height, elevation from one to the other? I'm not expecting you to know that. That was a long time ago, but I'm thinking about that one that sits immediately adjacent to it, to the
well, and I believe in between the main house and the is the cottage, basically. So the cottage is obviously much lower, so there's going to be quite a difference. But no, I didn't review that application with that in mind. I would say that under FEMA regulations, they're probably similar in terms of overall height. Maybe Lori, but I doubt it, though. It's one of those I would have been able to research that if I had known that was a question.
And just one other thing, having read through the construction protocol, which we asked for and you produced, we have the whole project to consider. If it was to go forward, there'd have to be some condition of approval to change some language here and there. We don't have to discuss it now, but there's certain aspects of how the project was to proceed that I don't think were clarified clearly enough for me. So I don't want to discuss that now because we can discuss the architecture and the larger question of FEMA. But I make note of it, that's all. That's something we'll have to talk about later.
I do believe that John's photos showed the robust vegetation there. I believe most of that was installed actually post-approvals with the Natural Resource Department's approval as well. So a lot of the vegetation that needs to be cleared to access these properties was installed and would be reinstalled at the conclusion of the construction as well.
Is there a document comparing the relief you're asking for now, listing them out versus the first time? Some of the relief being requested is different now.
I believe I
houses.
did
I don't know
a cover, there was a letter in my submission where I did that, yes. There's a table that references.
Okay, I guess I'm a little thrown because I expect to look at one application, and now we're getting two versions of one application.
Yeah, this is kind of new for us, right? It seems
Well,
to be.
you know, the relief is a little bit of is difficult to understand because the relief changes based on the roof form. So rather than being 30 foot high, it can only be 20 foot high. So, you know, that metric changes. The overall heights are lower in this application than they were before, but in actuality, the relief increases because you're only allowed to be at 25 foot of height. And I did discuss all this with Tyler. I think Tyler might be able to give you a little bit better synopsis, but I did put it all in my letter as well.
What's the date of that letter? 'Cause I have a lot of stuff here.
It's in my file, but it's
That's
the
your
one
letter
that had all.
of June 17th.
May 17th, yeah.
17th.
Received June 18th.
Okay.
I didn't see a table in it.
I think it was one of the exhibits. Exhibit A or B. I think it was B.
Maybe I'm phrase the question this way. The reason you're proposing, and say if I'm right or wrong, a flat roof is why? In other words, is it to show a massing difference? Is it to show,
Well, I believe
obviously the relief is going up on height because of the flat roof, but it's lowering. So is it your intent to show an example of a smaller mass?
it definitely does reduce overall mass and overall height on the property. The reason we're suggesting it or proposing it is that was one of the alternatives that was brought up. Both, you know, I believe I heard one of the board members as well as the neighbors, well, you know, a flat roof would be different. We wanted to demonstrate that, yes, you can consider a flat roof. It does reduce the massing of the structure above height, and you do achieve some reduction in the overall height of the structure, which was one of the objections of the neighborhood, or at least the adjacent neighbor.
So, and that option also applies to the guests, the separate structure?
That is correct, yes.
So that's either a pitch roof or flat roof as well?
That is correct. They were both submitted for the original application as pitch roofs because that is what they are today.
That's correct.
Yes, and the option to change it to a flat roof was based on suggestions and concerns about the overall height. And we thought it was really a worthwhile exercise to demonstrate what a flat roof option would look like for both of these structures. There are market improvements on the flat roof you can demonstrate in terms of overall height, but it does change some of the metrics under our town code
So
as well.
Tyler, can you pull up those two isometrics again? So this is flat roof, is that correct, the first one?
That is correct.
The second is flat roof, pitched roof?
That was the original, no, that is gable. That was the original proposal.
That's the original
The
proposal.
one to the right, yeah.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay, well, which one are we going to decide on? I mean, this should be one thing proposed in my mind, not this or this.
We're being asked, let's go clarify that one more time. We're being asked to select which one we prefer? Is that what's being asked?
Based
Yeah,
on what
that's-
will FEMA eventually require?
No, not required.
No, I think
It's
they're
required
both
for both of
FEMA
them.
I know,
compliant.
but
Not required, but
Well,
Right now,
the
the
board
house-
expressed concerns about overall height, the neighborhood expressed concern about overall height. I think it's a worthwhile exercise to propose both of these. You might select both of them and not have a preference, but I would suspect that the overall height reduction on both of these structures might be something that the board feels strongly about. In terms of saying, hey, we think this is a market improvement, or maybe you don't. But realistically, you have both sets of criteria, both sets of the variances that you can, and you can approve both, deny both, deny one, approve one, or, but essentially what we're asking for is for the board to consider approving one of these designs that were generated based on the board's, the first public hearing.
I
And
really-
council,
I have a problem
can I ask council's opinion, just get your direction on this? Because again, I don't know if we've ever had an option. So just see if this is customary, if it's reasonable for us to do this. I think it might be good for the board.
I would say it's reasonable because they have done a public hearing on the first application. You've heard everything about it, that design. And then I wasn't here for that meeting, but from what I understand, the board and other people said, we would like to see a flat roof. And they obliged and provided, and I think that the board is more than capable of considering both. And like Andy said, you could deny them, or you could approve. You could say, yeah, pick one, or we like this one, or we like this one, and then the other one's denied, this one's approved, and then
Okay.
vice versa.
Be well within your rights to reject the flat roof option as well. That was submitted as a suggestion for the board. And if the board looks at it and says, hey, this didn't tickle our fancy, or whatever the concerns are, weren't addressed or were addressed by the original proposal better, that, it really is an option that the board is free to accept, reject, not consider. But I thought it was an important option because it does actually improve some of the metrics on this application.
Okay.
This doesn't seem proper to me. I'm sorry.
Well, we just asked council if that
Yeah,
was
we did.
reasonable, and so.
Two applications at once. One
This is
application.
the copy of the difference that was submitted. It's
It's just, and to support her concern a little bit too, we're being asked to look at two options, which include two notices, two different notices, two different set of variances. So I think that's the hurdle that we have to get over.
Well, and the board moved to reopen the hearing.
That's
And
true.
to renotice it. That was not done by me. I said, hey,
Submitted a
The first one
submitted a
open
different
also.
application.
I mean, you should have one application here. Which one?
well,
do
you
want?
did have
We
one
requested it
application until you reopened the hearing and published a new notice, which I think is a reasonable step for the board to take based on my submission, if you wanted to consider it.
Well, we have reconsidered applications, and they've come in with a whole new application, nothing saying A and B. It's changed from A to B, and
But
we're looking at one application.
Well, there's really one concern on this application, and the applications are identical, the house is identical, it's the change to the roof. And I thought, in theory, it's a very simple change, it's just a little more complex under the town.
I want to move on from this. I don't want to carry this on too
Okay.
long. So maybe we hear from Tyler on this.
Okay, that's fine with me, thank you.
Tyler Borsak for the Planning Department. I don't have anything to add. The environmental conditions remain the same that I noticed when I first spoke. There's no additional clearing or anything like that associated with it. The house is pretty much in the best spot that they can fit it as it is. So I'll just make myself available for any questions if you have any for me.
Well, if you go through the document that we got from Mr. Hammer on May 17th, he does a thorough argument on behalf of what the FEMA would require if it was a redevelopment. He says they're voluntarily doing what FEMA is encouraging. There's all these recommendations, and he kind of goes through that page by page and then describes what he thinks is the major issue here about raising the house. And then he discusses if we had an alternative height, how would that affect the possible judgment on the board here? Nothing in any of that is any different than your interpretation of the first application. It's basically a clarification on behalf of the applicant on where they stand in terms of the FEMA regulations and recommendations. And then we can determine whether we think that that's enough justification to approve a height change.
Right.
That's it, basically. Right. And since that first, because we're talking about two different hearings, since that first hearing, all the substantial information that we discussed then that had to do with not just the reasons for raising the house, but what the impact of the new elevations would be, are just now the only change we're really going to have to consider here is whether it's more palatable to have something 2.5 feet lower.
Right.
But from your point of view, there's really no new take on anything that we've received since then.
No, we didn't have an opinion on the pyramid variances or the height variances. And the changes in those are based on changing from a pitched roof to a flat roof, which then changes the way the measurements are taken. Right. So we didn't, our opinion, which it was none, doesn't change at that point.
Okay.
Any other
So
questions?
nothing has changed in terms of GFA or anything else?
No, nothing like that has changed. It's just the change in the roof, which then impacts the size of the variances.
And they're elevating the garage to become a part of the residence and increasing the GFA.
Right. The garage is level with the rest of the house. They're lifting the entire thing. So they're incorporating that into the house and then building a new garage underneath the now raised residence. That's where the GFA variance comes from. Technically, I think they're already over GFA because the cottage and the house together are combined, which would put them over.
Any other questions?
No.
Nope.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Ron has a
Chairman,
question.
in our deliberations, we're to consider really 16 area variances. Right, we have to consider both designs with 8 for each.
Yeah, well, we're not going to, we'll have to discuss how we're going to attack that, whether we go from step one. Again, I don't know the outcome of how we're going to deliberate that, but
we're going to talk about how to.
We will be discussing that, I think, in an open forum. Do we have any comments from the public here this evening? Mr. Bragman? How are you, Jeff?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. Jeff Bragman. I represent 3 neighbors in the immediate vicinity, one at 184 Marine, 186 Marine, and 7 Dune. And they asked me to present and discuss some of their concerns. There are some contradictions in the plans and the application materials that we couldn't reconcile. So we prepared a chart comparing the current application to the prior application and indicating what the differences were. So I can hand those up. I've got some extras here. Yeah. We worked off the building plans because we thought that was the most accurate. We counted 9 new variances, but with the decking and the pool, it would be 11, I believe. The house and the guest house both encroach on the 100-foot setback for natural resources. I don't think that changes from a prior application. The specifics on the variances for the house are that the flat roof now requires a greater amount of relief because it has a lower height limit of 25 feet. Interestingly, though, they're asking for a 10-foot variance over that 25-foot limit, which means that this house is going to be 35 feet tall, which means it is 5 feet taller than a gable roof house is allowed to be. So I say this to you because the idea that they've reduced it somewhat, a couple of feet, does not result in a lower building. In fact, they're still piercing the height limit for a gable roof house. So it's quite a significant variance. Also, the main house pyramids, we have that on the north and south side, they remain the same. On the east side, it's almost 15 feet of relief that they need, quite significant. And on the west side, it's almost 16 feet, quite significant. And that means that he's asking for greater relief. And I will discuss in a minute or two, a couple minutes, the significance of that. But it's significant that he wants more relief, even though it's a flat roof house. Also, regarding the main house, he's already over the gross floor area limitations, and he wants to get further variance to get an additional 560 square feet. Council in the last discussion indicated that, we're just moving up the garage because it was counted as gross square footage, so we had it anyway. There's no evidence of that in the record. There's nothing in the record that confirms that. In fact, when you look at the building department printout, it calls out accurately the first and second floor and distinguishes them from the garage. There's no evidence in the record that indicates that garage was ever counted in gross square footage, unless Mr. Hammer has something new that he hasn't disclosed thus far. And that means that they're not entitled to just lift that up and add it into the gross square footage. You can't do that. Also, I think the board should keep in mind, speaking of new applications, that he's now coming in after the town board has changed the gross floor area calculations. It's certainly arguable this is a new application and it should apply, but I'm not going to emphasize that. I'm just going to say to you that if it did, it came in on July 1st. If it did apply, he would be reduced even further because the net lot area that we're dealing with here, despite the size of the property, is pretty small. It's like 29,000 square feet. It's less than an acre. So he's got a 4,500 foot house on a property, on a buildable property that's pretty small, less than a full acre. The guest house also has two increased pyramids variances that are required now. It's nearly 8 feet on the north side, and it's less on the south side. It's like a foot and a half on the south side, but they both represent an increase in the relief, again, because the height limitation is lower, but the relief he's asking for is greater. We'll get into why that is. And I wanted to say to you that in considering the difference in height, the height limitations, it's important that we look at this from a real world perspective, because if you envision yourself walking up to the front of a building that has a gabled roof, you're going to see that while that roof can be higher, it angles in, so it occupies less space, leaves more visibility, okay? And I've prepared a diagram for you. It's an illustration, and it's a simple illustration of a flat roof building of the same width compared to a gabled roof building that has the roof on it. I'll hand these. I'll wait till you to get that, if you don't mind, if I may.
I can get one.
Yeah. May I proceed? What you see in this diagram is the building on the left is a flat roof building, and it's shown going to a height of 25 feet. The building on the right's the same width, and it has the gabled roof. And as you can see, in getting up to the 30 feet mark, which is where the I forget the word now. It's where the peak of the roof meets the ridge, the roof ridge. Okay, as it gets up there, it's angling inward, so it leaves more air and space on the side. This also suggests there's a reason why a flat roof building has a lower height limitation. It's because when you raise a flat roof, you put more bulk in the sky because you occupy the entire width. It doesn't angle in. So it's not, you can't just come in and say, oh, well, one's 25 feet, one's 30 feet. We did our best. That's, what the best we can do. There's a reason that it has a lower roof height. And this application blows through that roof height. It is proposing a roof that's higher than the limitation on a peak roof. So this is a very impacting plan because it puts a lot of bulk much higher. And it's still much higher than the higher limit that would otherwise apply to a gable roof. And therefore, I don't think it's fair to just say, well, we need more relief because it's lower, so what's the big deal? There is a difference. There's a real world difference if this thing goes up as a square, flat roof building, which is why I would urge the board when it does consider the application to not consider this like either or, take your pick. If you're going to decide these on one of these plans or both of these plans, you should decide on both of these plans on the merits. It's not like, okay, it's A or B. It's, maybe yes, maybe no on A, maybe yes, maybe no on B. And it could be no on both of these plans. Counsel and the consultants for the applicant have obscured a lot of the issues in this case that I think the board and the public now understand. That the existing house was and remains legal and compliant with FEMA regulations.
Excuse me, counsel, you're not reiterating. I mean, if you've made this argument in the past, that's part of the record. So I don't want to rehash old argument.
Well,
please.
let me.
State-
I'll be very.
points,
I'll get through this very quickly. The point is, we now know that house was legal when it was built, and this is a voluntary application. That's clear. It took a long time in the last hearing to get to that point. So to make the point about this application, this new application is an entirely self-created difficulty. It's entirely voluntary, and the construction protocol shows how substantial the construction work is. This is in effect a new house. You can't hike the house up 9 feet and demo parts of it and take out the systems without substantially building a new house. And that's why FEMA's regulations are structured in the way that they are, that, they'll let you make modifications, you can grow the house, you can change the house. But when you hit that point where you're going to spend more than 50% of the value of the house, then they say
is it your argument then, if you're saying it's a very substantial argument, aren't you saying that they're meeting that requirement? Are you arguing that?
They're creating the problem that they're coming to the zoning board to solve. Okay, yeah, he's coming in saying, but the way it was phrased was, I have to do this. That's the way this case was presented. I have to do it. My point is simple. He doesn't have to do it. It's a choice. And in making this choice, this board has the jurisdiction to look at the variances that it's going to require, and you have the responsibility to make a decision based upon the grounds, the policies, and the standards for issuing variances. It's not one or the other. Then that's the argument that he continues to make, or it's the argument that's suggested here, is that I have to do this, FEMA requires it, so you should give me all the variances that I want. That's really what this applicant is saying. And what I've said before, and I think it's fair to repeat it here, is that there are two sets of rules that apply here. One is FEMA and one is the Zoning Board of Appeals, and one does not overrule the other. The applicant is also has claimed that he's, gets a minimal benefit. He said he's not really improving the view. Well, the view. I don't consider this to be the linchpin, the most important part of this application, but the fact of the matter is, If you raise that building 9 feet, the view on the ground floor.
I'm just going to stop it again. We brought up that point in the first hearing. This is not, please stick to
I'm making
new
a different,
information.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm not trying to be argumentative.
Thank
I'm
you.
making a different point.
Right.
I'm saying that the view that is improved immediately is the ground floor view, because as your photographs show, when you're on the ground, the view, it's a lovely view. It's of a 24-foot dune on the ground floor. So there is an impact, a benefit that he's getting. And it's a factor in the case. I'm not going to make more of it than that. I've mentioned the garage space, the view. The applicant is really making an argument to the board, and he made it explicitly during the first hearing, that, you know, the requests for variances are redundant. They're duplicative because we have to lift it X feet. That's simply untrue. And his argument, he's trying to make a larger policy argument here, that you should do this because this is what the future is of development in this area. That's factually incorrect, because FEMA doesn't overrule local zoning requirements. In fact, actually, your board is empowered precisely for the reasons that you look to other factors that FEMA doesn't look to. You look to impacts to the community, adverse impacts, you know, on the neighborhood, and a variety of other factors that are listed in the conditions for issuing variances. Pushing this building up. So what this is kind of, I'd like my cake and eat it too, because the applicant is basically saying, well, I have to elevate the house, you know, 9 feet or whatever, I think it's about 9 feet, but I want to keep a house that was designed for a lower elevation. And by doing that, he's pushing through virtually every rule you have on the dimensions of the house. He's asking for huge variances, and that's his rationale. And my statement to you is, this argument that this is what, you know, should be done to accommodate, to get safer housing and as people build houses, that argument should be made to the town board. He's basically making an argument that you should change your law and make FEMA all that we care, make FEMA control. Because if I have to raise it 9 feet, all bets are off. I shouldn't have to get pyramid variances. I shouldn't have to get height variances. That leads to Dune Road, West Hampton, where you have super tall houses because everything's raised up high. The answer is—
I'm going to say this again. That was all discussed, Council, in the first hearing. We compared Dune Road. You started off your presentation comparing the first application to this one hearing, and that was fine. But now you're still reiterating.
It's still still in effect. It's driving the same.
We understand that.
Okay. I'll move on. I don't want to. I'm not trying to waste your time. Believe me. But I do want to say, you know, council submitted something called a summary of coastal construction requirements and recommendations. It was a printout prepared by FEMA. And in reading through it, I found a quote that I think explains the situation, the relationship between the zoning board, and FEMA. And that relationship is a factor in this case. And what it said in that handout about new construction is that best practices must exceed the National Flood Insurance Program requirements, that would be the elevating, and must meet or exceed all community zoning and building requirements. That's in the FEMA handbook. And they're telling a zoning board, you're not out of business because of FEMA. You still have a role. And my suggestion and our suggestion is, if you want to raise your house 9 feet and you're going to spend more than 50%, then build a house that's designed for it. Don't come to the zoning board and ask for variances that blow through pyramid variances on all sides of the house, and that blow through the height limitations, and, you know, and add gross square footage that he is not entitled to. Don't do that. And if you think that's not the way the law should be, then go to the town board. This case, just like the other one, will set a major precedent. This house, this flat roofed house that's supposed to be an improvement, is going to be 35 feet tall. It's going to be 10 feet taller than the height limitation for a flat roofed house. There is no reason to set that as a precedent. That is a terrible precedent for you to make because it will encourage copycat applications. People are going to say, hey, he did it, we can do it. The answer here is if you're going to raise it and you think it's that important and you're going to spend more than 50%, then you should act in parallel with what FEMA says. Build a new house that's meant for that elevation. Don't blow through the height limits. Don't blow through the pyramid minutes. I also want to say to you, remind you, and I'm sure Chairman, well, I don't know if you were on the board actually, but I took a look at the 2021 lot line modification hearing, and there was a discussion among the members of the zoning board at that time, which I've got the transcript here. And at that time, Tim Brenneman was on the board, and he said, I think I would note simply that the lots are almost maxed out of GFA. So once this is added, they're within like 8 feet of being maxed out. And it was one of the reasons I didn't feel there were any unintended consequences here that for the lot that was receiving the cottage, they're both basically maxed out. Maybe one isn't it, but it's at the 90th percentile. So both lots are either at or near their maximum gross floor area. And the chairman then, John Whelan, said, yeah, thanks, Tim. I agree with that as well. Maybe it would be great just to note that the board would not want any more expansions of the house. And note Tim's comments that this board does realize that such GFA is maxed out at those numbers for both lots. I think that would be great to have in the record. So I have that transcript for you to look at.
How much longer do you think you'll be?
Not long. I'll zip through it. You also know that they've got sensitive natural features here. It's a very small lot, 29,000 square feet. The natural resources special permit standards suggest that this board take a look at smaller houses, smaller designs to limit impacts. And I might add, you build a taller house, it becomes more susceptible to wind and storm damage. It's not a good idea to be building 10 feet over the height limit for a gabled roof house. You know, overall, in terms of the standards, does the benefit outweigh any detriment to this safety or general health and welfare? I would say yes, it does. You're creating a much taller structure. It does not protect the character of the neighborhood. It's going to be a very unusually tall one-story building. And in fact, if you go down Marine Boulevard, you can see some lovely one-story houses that are elevated. And they're large houses, you know, they're houses that are in the range of what this applicant already has, around 4,500 square feet. And you can do it without pyramid variances, and you don't have to blow through the height variances. The neighbors are alarmed by how tall this will become. It does have an adverse impact on the neighborhood. It's going to be an unusually tall house. And you're supposed to be looking at whether the variances are the minimum relief necessary to solve this difficulty, and they are not. These are very extensive variances on very important issues. Height and pyramid are a big deal in East Hampton. That's what makes houses really intrusive, is when you violate the pyramid. So there are other ways that he can do it. These are not the minimum variance. They are substantial. You've got storm damage and wind damage here. This is a self-created situation, and I would urge the board not to indulge the applicant on this and say to him, no, you can come back if you're going to spend that money and build something that meets those requirements, and he's going to be able to get the same square footage that he's permitted today. So I hope that you take that into consideration, and please, when you look at it, treat each one of these proposals on its own merits. It's not a choice like, okay, we got to take one or the other. It's like—
We understand that,
okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate the time. Unless anyone has any questions, which I doubt.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm learning speed talking, but that's the best I can do.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jack Hassid. I live at 186 Marine Boulevard.
You attorney?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So much has been made of FEMA and its regulations tonight and at the prior hearing. And it was interesting that the applicant has, in its latest papers, have submitted a flood plan management bulletin from FEMA regarding variances and the National Flood Insurance Program. And when you look at it, you realize that they don't meet the requirements of FEMA when it comes to variances. And what FEMA has, it has three separate issues: hardship, increased risk, and minimum action. When it comes to hardship, it specifically says that hardship is not related to the individual personal circumstances of the applicant. This is only being done because of their personal desire to raise this house, not because they are required by any FEMA regulation. This house was legal when it was built, and it continues legal today, and it will be legal tomorrow. This same section of the FEMA bulletin says a variance is required for the applicant to make reasonable use of the property. They've had reasonable use of this property for 14 or 16 years. It was reasonable yesterday, it's reasonable today, and it'll be reasonable tomorrow. Increased risk. Issuing the, and I'm reading from the FEMA bulletin, issuing the variance will not impair the adjacent properties or neighborhood. I'm not going to go into what we said at the prior hearing or what Mr. Brackman said today. Clearly, the height and breadth of this building, no matter the gabled roof or the flat roof, is going to have a significant adverse bearing on the light and air that we and the other objectants here are concerned about. And then under minimum action, the variance will deviate from the overall zoning as little as possible to afford the necessary relief. They are not asking for as little as possible. They are asking for as most as possible that they can have. And we talked about the flat roof and the deck. I firmly believe, they say they don't want the deck. I honestly do not believe that, because their friends right next door at 189, they live on their flat roof deck. They have a hot tub, they have trees, they have a barbecue, and they have umbrellas, and because I see it. I see them up there. And so I think it would take very little. There's no way to enforce them not using that flat roof if this board approves that plan. There's no way to enforce them not putting a staircase from either inside the house or outside the house to have the deck. And we would be required, as I understand it, to have a 4-foot high railing that goes into the calculation of the height of the house. So the house, once they use the flat roof as a deck, would even be greater than what the law is permitted. And so the only final comment that I would want to make, and I appreciate the time the board has afforded me, has to do with the cottage, because that is truly directly across the street from my house. And that cottage, I don't know if the board knows this, but the house that used to be at 189 and that cottage was really a garage and cottage. It was built by Del Webb, the owner of the Yankees, for his wife at the time, Sonia Henney, the Olympic skater. Okay, and that house has been there since it was built in its current size, basically. Okay, and so it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, as was held by the then town building inspector at the time that they asked for the lot line modification. So it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, and I don't think anything should be done to increase the height or size of that edifice. You shouldn't put a finger to it. And unless the board has any questions for me, thank you for your time and attention.
Any other comments? You were represented, Rona, weren't you? Okay, come on up.
Learning to walk again. I had an ankle replacement, which is in itself a big thing. Anyway, Rona Klopman, I am directly across the street from the house, 184 Marine Boulevard.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth?
I do. I do. I have to say, as a board, you have my total respect. When I was in rehab, I watched the first hearing because I couldn't be here. And I will tell you, I mean, you have my total respect in that you have to make decisions on these applications and listen to attorneys. Mr. Hammer is a very nice guy, real folksy guy. I mean, he tells a lot of stories, and I could not understand one thing he said at the first hearing. I mean, he's kind of throws out everything so that something's got to stick, right? But the thing with the flat roof really got me because I went down to Atlantic Beach, all right, Atlantic Avenue, if I may hand you this photograph. It's of a Farrell house that was built with a flat roof.
We're familiar with that application.
Okay. And I took a look and I went, you know what, this house, we can have a flat roof with no access, but this is what can be put on that flat roof. And I'm looking at that right across the street.
You need to look at
30 flat feet.
Do you want it in the record?
I mean, and it's,
Is she submitting this?
you know, it's something visually that you should see. Because if you have a flat roof, and his neighbor does, and there's all kinds of things on that flat roof, as my neighbor, Mr. Hassett, said. So I just ask you to please deny both. I mean, I have never seen, and I watch the board meetings a lot, I have never seen take A or B. You know, you have a choice. I have never seen that in an application. I don't know if you guys have, I mean, because I may miss a few meetings here and there, but it's this person's decision to do this. I watched that house being built. I'm living there 38 years. And I have watched that the pilings go in. It was FEMA compliant when it was built. The cottage, as Mr. Hassett said, was always there as a little garage. They put in 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, and they lived in that house. All right, and it seems to me nothing should happen to that property. I mean, it's maxed out. I come out of my house and I take a look at that. I mean, it was built in compliance. It was built with the ZBA board approval, the planning board, and now it's time to say no. It's time to say it's enough. And I appreciate everything you do, so thank you.
Anybody else here would like to address this application? Matt, is there anybody online?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you. John, can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes.
I think Andy wants to
Oh, Andy,
talk.
come on up. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very, very brief. I do appreciate that Ms. Klopman called me a nice guy. I agree with that. After that, we start to diverge. You know, I will say there were a lot of personal things said about their intent and obfuscation. That's not the case at all. This is a very straightforward application from my perspective. You know, and it reads well on the plans. You can see exactly what's going on. I would have been happy to discuss this with any of the neighbors had they called me up, just so that we could have no misunderstanding. understanding. Mr. Bragman suggested, I think there's no difference between a flat roof and a gable roof. That's not true at all. There is, in fact, a difference. I think what the difference that I would like to point out is measuring height. If you stand and measure it at the highest point on the house, that varies with natural grade. So if you look at our plans, at one point it's 32 feet, 6 inches. I believe that's on the border with 189. On the other side, it's 35. That's because natural grade is falling away a foot or two. But the intent was never to create the highest structure. It was to meet the base flood elevation. So the height is increasing from the bottom, not going up on the top. And I think that's an important consideration of the board. This structure is being raised a certain amount to meet FEMA, and the resulting height is being driven by that, not by design criteria. As Mr. Bragman is correct, that many municipalities have incorporated FEMA into their zoning code, that they measure base flood heights, all that stuff will be natural grade for height limitations. We're not there in East Hampton. I don't think it's been discussed ad valorem at the town, but I think the zoning board is an important regulation on this, because there are certain applications, it would make no sense to go in and propose to raise a 1950s era house that nobody was planning on restoring. This is a 2009 house that was built pursuant to a zoning board application that was approved by the board and met all the setbacks at that time. Now we're trying to ensure its durability. I would like to thank Mr. Hasid for discussing just how hard it is to get a FEMA variance. We're not asking for a FEMA variance. Those standards that were recited are if you're trying to get a variance from FEMA regulations, not from the town code. So they're not applicable at all. But you can see those, no reasonable alternative. Those are if you go in and say, I need to vary FEMA. We have no plan to vary FEMA, and I don't think it's a very wise application to go in and say we should be lower than base flood. Any other questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'll give you 2 minutes.
I might have a question.
I don't think I'll need 2 minutes. The 35-foot height limit also mirrors natural grade, and that's what's shown on the plan. So the numbers I quoted are the numbers that this structure would achieve. It's measured from natural grade, and it's shown on the plan. Secondly, the town did and does give consideration to FEMA regulations. That's why elevating doesn't create an extra story here. That's what the town board decided was the appropriate way to accommodate FEMA. But what the council is recommending is something much different and much more extreme, and that is that FEMA should control over zoning. I would say, again, I don't think that's a good policy. And if he wants to argue that in front of the town board, he's welcome to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, when the council was referring to the FEMA is talking about variances at the state level. Here, that is what they're talking about, what communities should do when being asked for variances in the floodplain.
Thank you.
That's all I need to say. Thank you.
You are okay?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
have it's like a,
Regarding the application of Sands Capital Holdings LLC, 183 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-176-8-23.3. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and the public record.
Second.
Concur.
concur.
Concur. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we're going to we have one post-hearing decision this evening, and I'm going to read that into the record. The applicant is Chris and Julie Salmon at 108 Navy Road, Montauk, Suffolk tax map number 300-26-1-16. Size and location is 18,078 square feet, 108 Navy Road, Montauk. The description is to renovate the existing residence, change windows and doors, new roof, remove and alter approximately 180 square feet of residence, and construct decking in its place, reconstruct, remove, and construct additional decking, new deck railings, replace existing water and walkway and bluffs in place, construct a new outdoor shower, new pathways, new driveway and retaining wall, upgrade the sanitary system, and clear vegetation within jurisdiction and setbacks of bluffs and beaches. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code, and 3 variances are required for this application. Variances of 33.8 feet, 30 feet, and 30 feet are required from 255-440 of the Town Code to construct the proposed decking, 41.2 feet, additions 45 feet, and new roofing 45 feet from the top of bluff where 75-foot setbacks are required, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence zone, X flood zone, and the secret class is type 2. Who's going? Go ahead, Terry.
Okay. Well, this hearing was July 15th, 2025. The agents were Jameson McWilliams from the Miller Group and Katie Osecki from East End. I'm sorry, the company. Is she East End? I think it's East End Planning. Anyway, so.
That's correct, Terry.
Yeah, East End, okay. All right, I'm looking at a survey that we received on June 20th, 2025, which came along with documentation from the Adam Miller Group about some slight changes and proposals. That was a document received from them for the project description received on July 7th, 2025. That was done by Jameson McWilliams. July 7th, we also got a note from East End Land Planning with some slight changes, which they included some changes on the plans to certain numbers of the plans. We also have a planting plan on page L701 that we received on 10/9/24. And July 7th, updated plans for the overall project with minor changes made that we received on July 7th. And we have January 6th, 2025, received a stormwater management plan from DeLandro Andrews. So this one, well, you should remember, it's only a week ago, but so this, as you know, is a house that's in somewhat disrepair, had originally been put in, had a permit a long time ago, and did not get completed, and had only one C of O on in the entire time, with various things having been done to it back in 2008. And since that time, nothing has changed on the house. And the house is in some disrepair, as we saw. And the applicants are trying to just bring it into some state of livability and improve and make it more livable and add some slight appurtenances to the house itself. There's a small addition, which is one of the variances that we need, that they're requesting. And there's an area in the back of the house where they're going to remove a slight portion of the existing deck that sticks out, which goes over the coastal erosion hazard line a little bit. They're going to remove that, and then they're going to square out the portion of the first story deck and the second story deck that spans the seaward side of the house, and add some slight additions to allow an additional bedroom to be built with a first and second story deck. They're offering an IA system and they're offering a revegetation after construction of 1,224 feet. If you visited the house, the walkways are in disrepair in a lot of cases, and they're going to replace in place in kind of the walkway that goes out to the stair, which ends at the bottom of the bluff. And they're going to legalize another first-story deck and providing the IA system, and they're changing the portion of the front of the house from centering a portico in the front in order to accommodate a driveway that they're going to incorporate in the house that actually provides a parking that's on their property, whereas today it's in the town right of way. I think this application is a good application. I think the variances are the minimum necessary. And the variance of 33.8 feet for the proposed decking that is going to go on that seaward side, I think is the minimum necessary. And I think overall, it meets the standards, all of the things I'm going to approve, all of the variances. I think all of them do meet the standards for the variances, and NRSP also. So it's 33.8 for the decking and the additions and the new roof line to accommodate the additions and the first and second story decking are 30 for variances each. I think it does meet the NRSP standards. I think the revegetation is good. And they did incorporate a scenic easement on this that already existed prior to this application with this property. I think putting the parking, I think, is a plus onto the actual property and the re-veg, as I mentioned. So all in all, I think this application is a good one, and I'm going to approve the entire thing.
Thank you. Ed? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to agree with my fellow board member. I'll go right to the decision. I'm going to be approving this. I'll go through the items that stuck out to me. I think the variances are because of the constrained property. We see that. There's the C of O from 2008, and there weren't any significant changes. There was the one lower piece of decking which they're seeking to get approval on, which is really minor and up close to the house. What they're asking for is minor work to be added. It's a small addition. Member Berger already described what's to happen. A small piece is to be removed when the front entry is there. When we're done, there's a GFA reduction of 35.5 feet by trading one for another. The lot coverage goes down by a nickel by 5 square feet, but nonetheless it went down. It's not any greater. I think the retaining wall for parking is a good idea. Getting the parking off, anyone who went out there realized you practically have to land in the road in order to get into the house there. So that was a positive. The new septic and storm drainage is obviously a major plus. We're right up against the bay there. There's no significant increase in footprint. The roof line variances are really a minor. Let me see. They did not look to add anything any closer to the bluff, which is a plus. In a situation like that, there might have been some effort on the part of an applicant to try to get themselves a little better view or a little closer. Yeah, I don't know if there's much else to add. I think it was a pretty straightforward and good application. I think the house is in disrepair. It definitely needs work, and they're going to do some work on it. And I think that they came to us with an application that reflected the concern for the existing structure without adding a great deal more. And so I think it reaches up, it satisfies the NRSP standards, and I'm willing to approve this application. Thank you. Jane?
Thank you. Yes, so let me just start with the variances. So I am going to approve all 3 of the requested variances. I do think they meet the standards. That the proposed additional second-story deck was brought out by my fellow board members, but also at the hearing, doesn't extend anything beyond what is already there in relation to the Bluffcrest or Seaward. I do think they are the minimum necessary because you're keeping an existing house, and that really defines kind of what your variances are going to be relative to the constraints on the property. And the new roofing variance, I think, it's not, it's a little over the variances are just slightly over what mathematically we think of as substantial, but I just don't think they're substantial individually or taken as a whole. So on the variance, I'm going to approve all that. With respect to the NRSP, obviously we heard it's in the document that the sanitary is in the most conforming location, the best location. Now, if I go back to the hearing, I would try and get a little bit more on the record about why it couldn't have been on the other side of the property, which is already a little more disturbed. And we did talk about it. That area that is going to be fully cleared for the septic system has a very special wildness, a very strong mix of native plants. And it's, on one hand, I looked at that relative to the NRSP, it does degrade a bit, but they are doing more revegetation. And, this is the issue of modern building. There has to be a new septic, and that's a different type of environmental benefit. So from the NRSP, I'm going to approve that to the overall net reduction of clearing going from 4,656 now down to 2,817. There will be a fair amount of disturbance and some increasing construction related, but I thought the vegetation plan, as I really looked at the mix of plants, the diversity of what they're putting in, it seems to be very appropriate. And I also think the disturbance relative to the property is also lessened overall by keeping an existing house and renovating it. I think demolishing and, reconfiguring and changing would have been more disturbing to the site, and also, would have had perhaps a more negative impact on community character. This is a very visible house as you're driving on Fort Pine Boulevard, and they're modernizing a bit, but they're basically keeping the scale and the character. So all in, I think it was a thoughtful application, and I am approving all of it. Oh, I will just say one thing, that the applicant did say that they were very amenable to any suggestions about re-veg, and so I can't dictate it, but would love to see if they are taking out a lot of oak and scrub oak or things like that, maybe to get some oak back into revegetation areas somewhere else or something similar to that. Thank you.
These are very minimal changes to a property that is getting upgraded. Nothing has really changed on the property since the 80s. Most of the changes are within the original footprint and no closer to the bluff than what exists. The proposed addition will reduce overall GFA by 35.5 feet. They're upgrading to a low nitrogen septic system, which will utilize existing leaching pools. To mitigate the roof and driveway runoff, they have designed adequate dry wells, and the revegetation proposed will reduce clearing from 4,656 square feet to 2,943 square feet. All improvements that will benefit the property and not have a negative impact on the property or the surrounding properties. So since I feel they have demonstrated compliance with 255-850, 255-551, and 255-540, I will be approving this in its entirety.
Thank you. I agree with my board members. I'll just make a note that, if you look at the first variance standard, there's a benefit out of the applicant outweigh the town detriment to the town. It definitely does, and there is no detriment to the town here. There's a benefit to the town environmentally. So I think the mitigation here outweighs the asset they're asking for. Just a note on the septic, and I want to make this note that they're utilizing the existing outflow If they were to change it to the other side, they would have to change the entire pitch of the piping
Right.
inside the house. It's a major job, right? So it isn't a realistic.
Yeah, I mean, that's why
location.
I didn't make it and I just didn't want to, I was just stressing, I'm sorry to interrupt, on the, the vegetation and the, well, it's just.
Anyway, it's an
a reality.
approval. We're good, council.
Oh, I found it.
We have draft minutes of Tuesday, July 15th.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the draft minutes from Tuesday, July 15th, 2025 for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur. Thank you. On resolutions, we have Rolando Mendoza Rivas, 94 Cooper Lane, East Hampton, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-160-3-1. This was in our ultimate member, John Thorson's. He took over on this one. John, you want to just make a motion?
Yep, I'd like to, in the matter of the application of Rolando Mendoza Rivas, 94 Cooper Lane, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-160-3-1. I'd like to make a motion to approve the determination to allow an existing pool with associated equipment to remain within minimum front yard setbacks.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you. Next, we have Francis Yakubowski at 15 Faith Street, Montauk, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-28-5-5.2.
Yeah, that was mine. This was a 3-2 approval, 2 dissensions. This was an application to, this is an undeveloped lot. It was an application to build a residence. It required putting it in the furthest they could from the wetlands, significant wetlands on the lot. It went in the northwest corner. We thought it was the best three of us anyway, thought it was the best possible location. And therefore, I'd like to make a motion, or I'd like to, in the application of Francis Yakubowski, 15 Faith Street, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-28-5-5.2, I'd like to make a motion to approve the determination as written.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Can we have a motion?
Sure.
Adjourn.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on July 22nd, 2025 at 8:45 PM.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur.